Hello and welcome to a cornucopia of tales and tellers. I'm Simona, and of course, I'm here with Alan. Hello,
And I'm
Alan.
and I'm Alan. Hello, 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 hello. How are you?
How are you? I'm good, thank you. Are you, Alan?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Yes, thank you very much.
So I'm really excited because I'm going to introduce a series of just two episodes on the four elements. So on fire, earth, wind, and water. So in each of the two episodes, one today, the one you're listening to, and one in 2 weeks' time, we are going to tell stories inspired by one of the elements. So today's elements are Alan.
I am telling a story about water, and you're telling a story about fire.
Yes. And what is your story, Alan? What story are you going to tell us?
So my story is about a Selkie. So Selkies are seals around the coast of Ireland who can also remove their seal skin and turn into beautiful human beings and walk the land.
Nice.
And
Nice. So,
Simona,
so
what
story
would your
connected to
story on
water.
fire be?
So, what better story about a fire than the real story of the Great Fire of London? So, I've been trying to tell stories connected to history with my students, and I've taken inspiration for this story from a story that I found on one of the books by the storytelling schools. And so I'm going to tell the story of the Great Fire of London.
Fado, Fado, long ago, on the rugged shores of the Antrim coast in Ireland, there lived a fisherman named Eamon. Now, Eamon was known for his kindness and love of the sea. He spent his days casting his nets and singing songs to the waves, for he always felt if he sang a song to the sea as a friend, it would return the favour with some fish. But one stormy night, the winds howled and the waves crashed against the rocks, and Eamon spotted a mysterious figure along the shore. As he approached, he saw it was a beautiful woman with long, flowing hair, sitting alone and weeping. Her eyes were as deep and blue as the ocean itself. But there was a storm howling around her. He was worried for her well-being, so Eamon approached the woman and asked what troubled her. Through tearful eyes, she revealed she was a Selkie, one of those magical creatures who could transform from seals into humans by shedding their seal skin. This Selkie's name was Aisling, and she explained there was a cruel fisherman that had stolen her seal skin, leaving her stranded on the land. Without it, she couldn't return to the sea or to her people. Eamon was touched by her plight and promised to help her find her stolen skin, return it to her so she could return to her people. So together they embarked on a perilous journey along the Antrim coast, facing treacherous cliffs and dark caves. Eamon and Aisling set out on their journey. The night was shrouded in darkness. The winds carried this haunting melody through the air. The path they chose hugged the rugged cliffs, and the sound of crashing waves in the storm echoed in the distance. The first challenge came as they reached a series of steep cliffs that seemed almost insurmountable. Winds howled and threatened to push them off the narrow ledges. But Eamon was a kind man and fueled by even more determination. He led the way, finding precarious footholds and helping Aisling navigate the treacherous terrain. As they continued, they encountered deep, mysterious caves that seemed to go on forever. The darkness within was absolute. Strange, eerie sounds echoed from the depths. Aisling, who was unaccustomed to the land and only life underwater, clung to Eamon as they ventured into the unknown, relying on his guidance to navigate the labyrinth of passages. Upon entering the caves, they faced a dense thicket of thorns and tangled vines that seemed intent on blocking their path. Eamon was armed with nothing but a small knife, since he is only a fisherman. They skillfully carved a passage through the thicket, ensuring Aisling remained unharmed. The journey led to a desolate stretch of a rocky beach, where the moon's glow after the storm had passed revealed the shadows of lurking creatures. Eamon and Aisling moved cautiously. Their senses were alert to every sound and movement. It was here they discovered a fisherman's cottage nestled deep among the rocks. The final challenge awaited them as they entered this cottage under the cover at night. They could see the stolen skin was hidden in an alcove. that was guarded by creaky floorboards which threatened to betray their presence. Eamon, who had a steady hand, retrieved the skin while Aisling kept watch. Her eyes were keenly aware of any signs of danger. But their escape was met with the awakening fury of the angry fisherman. He pursued them along the shore. His shouts were carried by the wind. Eamon and Aisling sprinted across slippery rocks, narrowly avoiding crashing waves, as the fisherman's footsteps echoed closer and closer behind them. In a final desperate move, Aisling reached the water's edge, and with a swift, graceful motion, she slipped into her sealed form and disappeared into the sea. Eamon, moments later, dove in after her, leaving the enraged fisherman cursing on the shore. Eamon swam for his life. And so, the legend of Eamon and Aisling, the Selkie and the fisherman from the Antrim coast, lived on, whispered by the waves and carried by the winds along the rugged shores of Ireland. And on a night of a full moon, you can sometimes see the shadows of a human swimming with a seal, adventuring on in the moonlight.
A long time ago, in London, there lived a boy named Jack. Jack was the son of a baker, and every morning he'd start his morning by chopping the wood for the fire. Then he'd start the fire. Then he'd mix flour, yeast, and water to make a dough. And then he'd divide the dough into loaves and bake the loaves into the oven. And this was his morning routine. But one day Jack woke up to the smell of burning, to the smell of fire. He quickly ran downstairs and he saw that the bakery was on fire. Oh no! Someone must have left the door of the oven open, and now a coal had fallen to the ground and everything was on fire. Fire! Fire! He shouted, calling his family and waking them up. And soon they ran, and they ran downstairs. They took the buckets, they ran to the river, and then they took the water and no, the water just hissed. It just hissed. It didn't do anything. What could they do? What could they do? They ran down again to the river to take some more water, but hiss. The water just hissed and the fire wasn't stopped. Jack ran all around the street, shouting, "Fire! Fire! Fire! Help, please!" The fire was roaring, and soon it had spread to other buildings. Because you must know that at that time, in London, all the buildings were made of wood. And, well, they were built so close to one another that there wasn't enough space for a track with water to pass between them. So all the neighbors had soon woken up and they ran down to the river to get some more water with their buckets, but hiss, hiss, hiss. The fire wouldn't stop, and the wind carried the fire from one building to the other and to the next one. Oh, what could they do? They were there all together, and the mayor was there. And soon he ordered, "Take your saws, take your axes, take your ropes, and bring down some of the buildings before they take fire." Yes, and that's what they did, but no, it was too late. The fire had already spread to those buildings before they'd come down. What can we do? What can we do? But soon a man had an idea. So they took gunpowder. They took barrels full of gunpowder and they put them in the houses in a circle around the area where the fire was burning, and boom, they blew up those buildings. And hours later, the fire stopped. They were coughing and they couldn't breathe for the smoke and the ashes. And walking around the city of London, all they could see were ashes on the ground. All the buildings had burned down. But soon, the people in London started building their houses again, and they built their houses on the ruins of the old ones. And this time, they built their houses with a little more space between one another so that a cart or a wagon with water could pass between them in case of a fire. And Jack too rebuilt his house and the bakery with his family on the ashes of the old one. And well, from that moment on, as always, he'd start his morning by chopping the wood for the fire, by starting the fire. Then he'd mix water, yeast, and flour to make dough. Then he'd cut the dough into loaves and he'd bake the loaves into the oven. But from that moment on, he always remembered to check that the door of the oven was closed.
So thank you very much, Simona. That was Water and Fire. Tune in 2 weeks' time for a bit of earth and a bit of wind and see where the north wind takes us. Thank you very much, Simona, for your story.
Thank you, Alan, for yours.
And we will see you in a fortnight. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cornucopia of Tales and Tellers is a passion project brought to you by English teachers Alan and Simona, who want to create a compilation, or a cornucopia, if you will, of stories from all around the world by as many tellers around the world as possible. So grab a cup of tea, chai, water, or uskabraha, relax and enjoy hearing the tales that have been handed down for generations, or even ones that were dreamt up just yesterday. Music by Purple Planet. You can find us on Facebook at A Cornucopia of Tales and Tellers. And if you like what you hear, you can buy us a coffee to help fund future episodes and the hosting of our podcast. Link in the description.